In the wake of the tragic school shooting in Santa Fe, Texas, President Obama's former education secretary, Arne Duncan, is suggesting a boycott. That's right, a boycott of schools until there is gun control.
Yep, tweeting this. He said, "What if no children went to school until gun laws change to keep them safe? My family is all in if we can do this at scale. Parents, will you please join us?"
Here to weigh in, former Education Secretary for Ronald Reagan and Fox News contributor Bill Bennett. Secretary, always good to have you with us.
Good morning.
You didn't come up with that same strategy
guys.
when you were head of education. What do you think?
No, it's a bad idea. Maybe if you're at Beacon High School and you're doing moments of silence for Hamas, maybe you should keep your kids home. But that's an individual basis. No, look, what Arne Duncan is saying is that we can't keep our schools safe. We can keep our schools safe. You had a guest on earlier who talked about both tactical and strategic solutions. I agree. Take D.C. Washington, D.C. has metal detectors. You know, it's a big city. There's a lot of crime in D.C. There are a lot of guns in D.C. No child in a D.C. public school has ever been shot in a school. They have metal detectors. There are other things you can do. But there's another dimension to it. And your earlier guest, the former Delta Force guy, mentioned it, and it's wise. Communications between adults and students. Students need to know, you know, like we have said before, if you see something, say something. These kids tend to know where the problems are, and the kids with problems, and the kids who are nursing deep grudges and acting in strange and unpredictable ways. We got to get them to open up, and teachers and adults, parents, of course, in the first instance, have to pay more attention to it.
Mr.
Keeping kids out of school, you know, laying down your brains because of this doesn't make any sense.
And for how long? Because who knows how long it would take to actually make any change. So,
yeah, Mr. Secretary.
No kidding.
In Texas, awful tragedy. Could have been a lot worse, perhaps, without this retired Houston police officer who is armed and trained and in the school now as a resource officer to protect children like this. What do you think about this? Is a hot debate as well, and there are some who say don't add more guns to schools, even if they're trained and all of that. But there are a lot of other smart people in this country saying, hang on a second, if you get people who are actually retired police officers, know what they're doing, that will keep our kids safe too. What do you think as former secretary?
I tend to agree with that. I mean, it's a local decision, but I think if people have the right people in the schools, it can help. I have little doubt that it didn't help. Didn't help here. I'm sure it did. But kept the scale down. So I think that's another one. But that's a tactical. And again, we have to look at the larger question. I think it can also be said that so much attention, so much publicity, the face of these guys being shown all the time, you know, it encourages more of it. I don't know what you do about that, frankly, in a free society with a free press, but I think some restraint. When I had the radio show, we didn't mention these people's names. We talked about the facts and the events, but didn't mention the people's names. That's a small thing. But look, we have to be able to keep our kids safe. I remember back in D.C., do you remember when they had those two killers in the car who were roaming around D.C. and in Virginia, and they finally caught them? They tried to cancel a football game at our kids' high school. I said, get every parent out there and we'll ring the field and we'll stand there. Every father, let's not disrupt what we're doing here as a school because of some fear. You cannot surrender your children to this kind of fear. You have to protect them, and that means doing a lot of things.
That's a great point. Well, you've been the education secretary. You've also been the drug czar. So this one is a twofer. In the Illinois Senate, just voted to give kids access to medical marijuana at schools. So they can't smoke pot at schools, but if they're allowed to have medical marijuana, they can bring it to school. What do you think about that?
Well, medical marijuana has been the Trojan horse to get marijuana normalized generally. I have to say again here, like the Beacon High School, if they had moments of silence for Hamas, I wouldn't send my kid there. If you're sending your kid to a school where they're normalizing marijuana use, forget it. Any alleged benefit of marijuana can be addressed in another way other than by token up. But this permission for marijuana, we know certain things about marijuana for sure. It hurts, it impedes, and it can destroy focus, memory, and attention. Do you need focus, memory, and attention in school? I think so.
Yeah.
Last time I checked, yeah. Common Core may have changed that a little bit, but no, I'm just kidding. Mr. Secretary, thank you very much for your time.
That's another day.
That's a whole other day.
That's a whole
It's a whole
other
other discussion. We appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Good to see you this morning.